Why was the alarm pulling her back to a life she buried years ago? The sun baked the sprawling Texas airbase, its heat rising in mirages that wavered across the endless tarmac. Engines growled in the background like restless animals in a cage, their deep rumble punctuated by the clipped shouts of crew chiefs and mechanics. Jets sat in perfect lines, glinting in the sunlight, each one looking poised to leap into the sky at a moment's notice. Emily Rhodes moved quietly through it all. No one paid her much mind. She wore a plain olive-green jumpsuit, no rank insignia, no combat patches, nothing to hint at the history she carried. To the dozens of young pilots hustling between hangars, she was just the simulator instructor. The quiet one, the one who drilled them in basic maneuvering, who told them to loosen their grip on the throttle, who reminded them that a fighter jet wasn't something you wrestled into submission. It was something you learned to dance with. What they didn't know was that she'd once been the best dancer in the sky. 5 years earlier, her call sign had been spoken in whispers in briefing rooms and overclassified comms. Ghost Hawk, a name pilots used with a mix of awe and disbelief. She'd flown missions no one talked about, the kind that didn't exist on paper. She'd threaded an F-22 through anti-aircraft fire so dense it looked like the night sky itself was tearing apart. She'd saved crews, strike teams, and entire convoys without a single word of it ever making the news. And then she'd walked away. Her last mission had ended in fire and screaming comms, in the image of her wingman's jet tumbling out of the sky. Falcon haze, the kind of pilot you thought couldn't die, was gone in seconds. Emily had sworn to herself she would never climb into a cockpit again. Now, the only sky she knew was the one projected inside a simulator dome. That morning was just like any other. She sat in the dimly lit control booth, coffee in one hand, headset over her ears, watching 3 recruits fumble through a simulated dogfight. She spoke into the mic, her voice calm, detached. Ease off the throttle. You're overcorrecting your roll. Let the jet breathe. Her mind wasn't here. It hadn't been here for a long time. And then it happened. A faint siren at first, easily ignored, but it didn't fade. It swelled, louder, urgent. The calm rhythm of the bass fractured like glass. Through the control room's window, she saw pilots sprinting to hangars, ground crews scattered like ants, hauling fuel lines. Loading ordnance on the intercom, the voice of the base commander came sharp and fast. Unidentified aircraft approaching restricted airspace. All active pilots to your stations now. Her coffee slipped from her hand, shattering across the floor. Emily! A young airman rushed past the door. Bunker, now. She nodded automatically, but didn't move towards safety. Instead, her feet carried her toward the control tower. Years of muscle memory told her what that alarm meant. This wasn't a drill. Inside the tower, the air was thick with urgency. The big radar screen showed a single fast-moving blip. An officer's voice cut through the noise. Unidentified. Drone moving at max speeds. Closing on civilian airspace. 10 minutes to breach. The base commander's jaw was set. Get the Raptors up. A voice from the other side of the room. Sir, Raptor 1's pilot is down. Medical emergency. Raptor 2's grounded. Engine failure. Emily froze in the doorway. The commander slammed his fist against the table. We need a pilot now. That was when one of the older officers turned and spotted her. His eyes narrowed, then widened in recognition. Sir. I know someone. Heads turned. The commander's gaze followed the officer's finger and landed on her. Her? She's a simulator instructor. The older man's voice dropped, almost reverent. She's Ghost Hawk. The room went still. Her throat tightened. That name, she hadn't heard it in years. It was like a ghost rising from the grave, dragging the weight of her past into the present. She tried to shake her head, but the words wouldn't come. You flew Echo Squadron? The commander asked. She didn't answer. Her eyes went to the radar. The the little red blip streaking toward populated airspace. 8 minutes now. Every second they stood here meant more people in danger. The commander's voice softened. We don't have anyone else. Emily's heartbeat roared in her ears. She looked at the recruits huddled in the back, their faces pale. They weren't ready. None of them were. She took a breath, prepped the Raptor, and just like that, there was no going back. Technicians bolted toward the hangar, the heavy metal doors already groaning open. Mechanics ran checklists at a dead sprint. The commander moved closer to her, lowering his voice. Do you still remember the controls? Her reply was steady. Once you've flown a Raptor, you never forget. The older officer stepped up, his tone carrying something between pride and warning. You saved an entire strike team over Kandahar. If anyone can stop that drone, it's you. She didn't respond. Outside, the sunlight glared off the Raptor's sleek frame as she approached. Her boots crunched against the gravel, each step heavier than the last. A young tech ran over, helmet in hand. Ma'am, you're cleared for launch in 5. He stared at her like she was a myth come to life. She didn't smile. Legends didn't save people. Actions did. In the tower, the radar blip closed in on the runway. The F-22's engines started their low. Predatory growl. Emily climbed the ladder into the cockpit. The harness bit into her shoulders, the displays lighting up around her. Her hands settled on the controls like they'd never left. The world outside faded. The cockpit became her whole universe. The HUD blinked. Target acquired on radar. She closed her visor, her voice low. Ghost Hawk. Ready for launch. And for the first time in 5 years, she felt that old fire stirring. What kind of drone could move like a living thing? The control tower's voice cracked through her headset. The words clipped but heavy with urgency. Ghost Hawk, you are clear for immediate launch. Repeat. You are clear. Emily's right. Hand settled on the throttle. Her left gripped the control stick, knuckles wide under the leather glove. The smell of heated metal and jet fuel filled her lungs. She could feel her heart pounding against the harness straps, a low, steady drumbeat. Beneath the Raptor's rising growl, "Copy, tower," she said, voice even. She pushed the throttle forward. The roar of the engine swelled from a hungry hum to a full-bodied scream. Shaking through the airframe and into her bones, the runway blurred beneath her, the concrete rushing past in streaks of gray. Her body pressed into the seat as the acceleration hit, and then weightlessness wheels lifting from Earth, the Texas base falling away beneath her. That first climb hit her harder than she'd expected. The G's pinned her back, pulling at her shoulders and chest, and for a heartbeat she felt the old question creep in. Can I still do this? She'd told herself for years she was done with the sky. But now, as the Earth curved away below and the endless blue opened ahead, the answer came, unspoken but certain. She was already doing it. She eased into a steep ascent, the horizon tilting. Her HUD came alive with data. Altitude climbing past 15,000 feet. Airspeed brushing the edge of the red line. Ahead, a pulsing red icon marked the rogue drone. Its telemetry scrolled down one side of her visor Mach 21 and climbing, weaving erratically but never slowing. The commander's voice cut in. Maintain. Pursuit, Ghost Hawk. Do not engage until you have visual confirmation. Copy, she replied, her tone steady but her mind racing. She'd chased fast-moving targets before. Falcon and she had once intercepted a hostile fighter that barely showed up on radar. But this was different. The movement on her HUD wasn't just random speed bursts. The drone was thinking. She adjusted her pitch slightly, narrowing her pursuit angle. The AI on board her jet predicted its next move. A faint ghost path projected across the HUD, but the drone veered off that path almost instantly. As if it had seen the prediction coming, Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. You're not just flying, are you? You're learning. The clouds ahead thinned, and for the first time, she caught a flicker of something unnatural against the sky. a shard of black metal slicing through sunlight's sharp edges. Catching the glare, even at this distance, its silhouette felt wrong, predatory. She didn't bother with disbelief. If she could see it, it was already too close. "Visual confirmed," she reported. "Target is not reconnaissance. Combat design. I repeat, combat design." The tower went quiet for a moment. Before the commander's voice returned. "Harder now. Engage if necessary. But your priority is to keep it from entering the city's airspace." She could have told him there was no if about it. The drone wasn't here to scare anyone. It was here to hit something. The drone banked suddenly, rolling so sharply her own gut twisted watching it. She saw the maneuver before it happened, her instincts reading the shift in its trajectory, and rolled the Raptor hard to match it. The G-force dug into her ribcage, making each breath a deliberate, forceful thing. Her hands adjusted pressure on the stick by millimeters, coaxing the jet through the turn rather than muscling it. The Raptor's response was immediate, like it remembered her touch. That was the thing about flying. You didn't command the aircraft. You convinced it. Her pulse steadied. The rhythm of flight returned. Throttle, pitch, yaw, counter. It wasn't like riding a bike. It was like slipping back into a dream you thought you'd forgotten. A burst of tracer fire snapped past her canopy. The shock of it made her breath catch. "Tower, be advised," she said evenly. "Target is armed." A low curse came over Combs, followed by the commander's clipped order. "Take it down, Ghost." "Hawk, that's an order." Her thumb moved over the weapon switch, but she hesitated. The drone's heading was still dangerously close to the city perimeter. A missile detonation this close could scatter debris or worse into civilian areas. She breathed once, slow, deep, and decided, negative. Too close to population, drawing it out. And then she did something no sane pilot would. She cut throttle. The sudden deceleration pulled at her body as the Raptor nearly stalled. The drone shot past her, overshooting by a few hundred yards. Before it could adjust, she rolled in behind it, nose tracking the black shape through the HUD. Lock tone, clean, steady. "Target acquired," she said. "Take the shot," the commander barked. Her thumb hovered over the trigger, and still, she didn't fire. Instead, she yanked the Raptor into a vertical climb. The G's pressed into her spine like a fist, her helmet pushing hard against the headrest. She could feel the blood pulling at her limbs, tunneling her vision at the edges. But she kept breathing short, sharp bursts to keep herself conscious. Below, the coastline shrank. The city disappeared into a blur of color and concrete. Above, the sky stretched wide and merciless, empty except for her and the drone. "Ghost Hawk, you're leaving the intercept zone," the tower warned. "I'm buying us time," she said. "Out here. It's just me and it." The drone followed, no hesitation, on the ground. The control room was dead quiet, except for the hum of the radar. The recruits who'd been in her simulator sessions just hours earlier leaned in toward the screens. On the display, Emily's icon and the drones danced in tight arcs, looping and diving. One recruit whispered, "She's keeping it on her." The older officer standing behind him didn't take his eyes off the radar. "She's leading it, Big." Difference. Back in the cockpit, Emily kept her breathing slow. Her eyes tracked the drone's movement, noting every subtle roll, every twitch in its flight path. Falcon used to say that if you stared long enough at an opponent, they'd eventually show you what they were afraid of. She was starting to see it now. It didn't like high G turns, not real ones. Its adjustments were precise, but delayed fractional delays, almost impossible to notice unless you'd flown against human pilots for years. But she had, and that was all she needed. The eye was fast, deadly, and calculating. But it wasn't her. Her visor flickered with a brief temperature spike, a weapon system heating up. She banked hard left, flares popping from the Raptor's undercarriage, their heat signatures flaring bright in the drone's sensors. A moment later, A burst of machine fire ripped through the empty air where she'd been. She pushed the Raptor into a shallow dive, letting the drone follow her down into denser air, forcing it to work harder to keep pace. On her HUD, the coastline was gone now. Only water beneath them. She could almost feel the change in the air, the cooler, salt-heavy wind buffeting the jet. In the tower, a younger officer turned to the commander. "Sir, she's pulling it over open water." The commander didn't look away from the radar. "Then she knows what she's doing." The older officer's lips curled faintly. "She always does." Emily dropped another set of flares, rolling into the sun's glare. For a moment, the brightness blinded her, her visor struggling to compensate. But she knew it was doing the same to the drone. She twisted hard, doubling back under its blind spot, and came up behind it again. Lock tone perfect. Her finger tightened on the trigger. And she stopped. Falcon's voice whispered in her mind. "Patience wins the fight." She eased back, keeping just enough distance to keep it chasing. This wasn't about rushing the kill. It was about making sure when she took the shot, there would be nothing left to fight back. "Ghost Hawk, status," the commander's voice pressed in. She smiled grimly behind her visor. "I've got it right where I want it," the hunt had begun. How do you outthink something built to learn faster than you can breathe? The ocean stretched beneath her, an endless sheet of rippling steel blue. The coastline was gone now, swallowed by haze. In her helmet, the only sound was the hum of the Raptor's engines, the steady beep of her locked tone, and her own breathing. Slow, measured, deliberate. The drone still trailed ahead of her, darting left and right in sharp, calculated bursts. It wasn't fleeing. It wasn't panicking. It was probing her, trying to bait her into a bad angle. She could feel it. The AI wasn't just reacting to her. It was predicting her, running its own playbook in parallel to hers. "Ghost Hawk, you're in open water." The commander's voice came through the headset, taut with tension. "You have clearance to engage." Her eyes narrowed. She didn't answer right away. Falcon's voice came back to her, the way he'd sound when the fight got tight, when the enemy was just a little too clever. "If you rush the kill, you're already dead. Let them make the first mistake. I'll take the shot when it counts," she said finally. "Not before." The commander's sigh crackled in her ears. Equal parts frustration and trust. "You've got 5 minutes until it could turn back toward the city. Make it count." "Copy." She eased the throttle, letting the Raptor drift just enough to make the drone think it had the edge. The AI closed the gap quickly. Too quickly. Like a predator sensing wounded prey. Her HUD flashed with a sudden spike in thermal output from the target. "Missile lock detected." Her onboard, AI announced. Emily didn't flinch. "Yeah, I see it." The warning tone in her helmet rose to a shriek. She banked hard, dragging the Raptor into a corkscrew dive. The ocean spun wildly across her canopy, then vanished above her as she rolled inverted. Flares bursting from her belly in blinding streaks. The drone fired. A white-hot contrail slashed past her right wing, detonating behind her in a bloom of fire that rocked the jet. Her teeth rattled. Her hands never left the stick. "Close one." "Ghost Hawk," the commander said. Her reply was calm, almost cold. "Close is still alive." In the control tower, no one spoke. The recruits were packed shoulder to shoulder near the radar station, watching two blips swirl and dart like angry hornets. "She's pulling tighter turns than the drone," one recruit murmured. The older officer's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. "That's because she knows when to cut speed. That thing's running algorithms. She's running instinct." Another blip flickered briefly beside the drone's icon, one of Emily's decoy flares. It vanished almost instantly. As the drone recalibrated, "She's testing it," the older man added quietly. "Looking for its limits," Emily leveled out, skimming barely 200 feet above the water. Spray burst in her wake as she pushed the throttle forward, letting the drone follow her into the low-altitude run. Falcon used to love this. Flying so low you could almost taste the salt. He'd once told her, when you bring the fight to the deck, you take away their space to think. She wasn't sure it would work on something that wasn't human, but she had to try. The drone stayed locked behind her, matching her every move, but she could tell it didn't like the low level. Its trajectory bobbed just slightly, the eye adjusting for ground effect turbulence. Her lips twitched. Found you. She yanked the stick back, climbing sharply. The drone climbed with her, engines howling. At 15,000 feet, she rolled left, bleeding speed just enough to let it close in. The AI thought she was slowing from exhaustion. Her pulse stayed even. "Ghost Hawk, you're closing within firing range again," the tower said. "Not yet," she replied. The drone's locked tone chirped in her ears again. She waited until it was almost ready to fire before she cut throttle hard, kicking the Raptor into a skid turn that dropped her directly behind it. Her HUD lit up, target acquired. This time she didn't hesitate. Her thumb pressed the trigger. The Sidewinder tore free from her wing, its smoke trail curling toward the black predator ahead. She held her breath as the missile closed the gap. The drone split. Or rather, it looked like it did. 3 identical signatures bloomed on her radar, each moving with the same pattern, the same speed. Her targeting system flickered, unsure which one to track. Emily cursed under her breath. "You've got decoys, clever." She switched her HUD from radar lock to heat signature tracking. 2 of the blips dropped in intensity, their exhaust tongue dipping just enough to give them away. The third burned hotter. Real, she locked on again, weaving through the false targets. "You're not fooling me twice." Her finger tightened on the trigger, but the drone banked hard and dove, a sudden move breaking the lock. In the tower, one of the recruits groaned. She had it. The older officer didn't blink. "That thing's got a pilot's brain. She's not going to win by chasing. She's got to make it follow her." Emily's jaw flexed. "Okay, you want to play games?" She shoved the throttle forward, diving in pursuit. The ocean rushed up toward her canopy again. At the last second, she pulled level, streaking across the waves so low her altimeter screamed warnings. The drone came after her. Falcon's voice returned. "Don't give them the fight they want. Give them the fight they fear." She smiled faintly. "I can do that." Without warning, she cut power again, her Raptor dropping speed so fast it almost felt like hitting a wall. The drone overshot, its eye calculating too late that she'd stopped running. She rolled into its blind spot, HUD locked tone ringing steady. Target acquired. The commander's voice. "Take the shot." And she almost did. But she saw it then, the shimmer of coastline. Far in the distance. They drifted back toward land without her realizing. A detonation here would scatter burning debris across miles. Her finger froze. Negative, still too close. She banked away, climbing back toward the open ocean in the tower. The commander slammed a hand on the console. She had it. Why the hell didn't she? The older officer cut him off. "Because she's not here to win a fight. She's here to make sure we don't lose one." Emily took a long, slow breath. She could feel her heartbeat again, steady in her chest. The drone was still behind her, still aggressive, still trying to predict her. Let it. She pitched the nose down, diving toward the horizon until the sea and sky blurred into one long, unbroken line. The Raptor's frame rattled under the strain, the G's digging into her spine, but she kept her hands loose on the stick. At the last second, she rolled inverted, climbing into a corkscrew loop that pulled the drone along behind her. Every alarm in her cockpit screamed. The Raptor's wings flexed, the engines groaning. Her vision narrowed to a tunnel of sunlight and shadow. "Come on," she whispered. The drone stayed locked on, its algorithms confident it could match her. It couldn't. She cut throttle mid-loop, letting the Raptor drift just enough for the AI to overshoot. In the split second before it corrected, she rolled back upright and dropped in behind it lock. Tone again. This time, she didn't break it. "Ghost Hawk to tower," she said, voice like steel. "Target in my sights. Open ocean confirmed." "Take it," the commander said. Her thumb pressed the trigger, and the chase moved into its deadliest phase. How do you kill something that never gets tired, never hesitates, never doubts? The tone in Emily's helmet was a razor-sharp metronome, lock tone solid. The crosshairs in her HUD framed the black dart of the drone dead center, her thumb pressed. The trigger, the Sidewinder missile leapt from her wing. Leaving a trail of fire in the thin air, it closed the distance fast. Its guidance system locked tight, and then the drone twisted. It folded its own wings inward, reducing drag, and dropped into a near-vertical dive, so fast it almost blurred against the blue. The missile streaked past empty sky before detonating far below. A harmless blossom of fire against the ocean's skin. "Missile missed her on board," I reported. "Needlessly, I noticed," Emily muttered. Her hand tightened on the stick. She dropped the Raptor after it, the G's slamming her into the seat. Her vision dimming at the edges, she forced herself to breathe short, sharp bursts. Falcon's old trick to keep from blacking out. Below, the drone pulled out of its dive just feet above the waves, its weight cutting twin scars into the water. Emily followed, the altimeter screaming warnings in her ears. Salt spray peppered the underside of her jet as she leveled out. In the control tower, the recruits leaned so close to the radar that their breath fogged the screen. "Why didn't the missile track?" one asked. The older officer didn't look away. "Because it's smarter than it has any right to be." That wasn't just evasive flying. It anticipated her firing window before she pulled the trigger. The commander folded his arms, his voice a low growl. "She's going to have to fight it like it's human." Emily stayed on the drone's tail, her eyes scanning every twitch in its movement. The AI wasn't just executing maneuvers. It was studying hers, adjusting. Every time she pressed for a shot, it threw her own tactics back at her in sharper form. It was, she realized, like fighting a mirror that learned from each punch. Falcon's voice ghosted through her mind. "When the other guy keeps up with you, don't give them your playbook. Rewrite it mid-fight." Her lips curved faintly. "Let's see how you like this." She rolled the Raptor into a barrel climb. Her nose pointed toward a wall of cloud. The drone followed, inside the cloud bank. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Vapor streamed across her canopy, and every instrument was suddenly more important than her eyes. The drone's signal still glowed on her HUD, but it was just as blind as she was. Emily cut her speed, drifting just enough to slide out of its predicted path. In the thick fog, it overshot slightly, enough for her to swing behind it for half a second. Lock tone. She fired her Vulcan cannon. Tracer rounds ripped through the cloud, sparks flashing. As some clipped its left wing, not enough to cripple it, but enough to make it angry. The drone broke hard right, clawing for open air in the tower. The commander gripped the back of a chair. "She tagged it." The radar tech frowned. "Minimal damage. It's compensating." "Still," the older officer said quietly, "now it knows she's not afraid to get close." Emily punched through the edge of the cloud, sunlight flooding her cockpit again. Ahead, the drone was rolling in tight arcs, trying to shake her. She matched every move, every roll, every climb, then it did something new. Her HUD flared red. Incoming lock. Not one, not two. 3 missile locks. Her jaw tightened. "You've been holding out on me." She dumped flares and broke left. One missile detonating harmlessly behind her. The second she dodged with a snap roll, the blast wave buffeting the jet. But the third stuck with her, closing fast. "Ghost Hawk, you've got one riding your tail," the commander barked. "Not for long," she said. She cut throttle, letting the missile gain. At the last possible second, she pitched the Raptor straight up into a vertical climb. the G's slanting her spine. The missile overshot, climbing too steep, and detonated above her in a flash of fire. The shockwave rattled her teeth, but she held steady in the tower. One of the recruits whispered, "She's insane." The older officer allowed himself the faintest smile. "She's alive. That's the difference." Emily knew she couldn't just keep dodging. Every missile the drone carried was another chance for it to catch her on a bad turn. She needed to break its rhythm, force it into her fight. She dove back toward the ocean, the altimeter ticking down in rapid numbers. The drone followed, its AI likely thinking she was retreating into low-altitude chaos again. But at the last second, she yanked the stick, pulling the Raptor into a tight climbing loop. The G's hit like a hammer, her breath hitching in her throat, but she forced her muscles to obey. The drone followed into the loop. But that was the trap. Mid-climb, she kicked the Raptor into a rolling dive, dropping under its nose. Now she was the predator. Locked tone. "Ghost Hawk, you have an opening," the tower urged. Her thumb tightened on the trigger, and then, for the first time in the fight, the drone hesitated. It pulled into a strange, weaving climb, like it was trying to disengage. Emily's eyes narrowed. "Oh no, we're not done." In the tower, the radar tech blinked. "It's pulling away." The commander leaned forward. "Or it's baiting her." The older officer shook his head. "It doesn't matter, she's not letting it go." Emily pushed the throttle to the stops, the Raptor surging ahead in pursuit. The drone was slower now, but still cunning. Darting toward a new stretch of cloud cover, she followed it in. Inside, the world went white again. The only reality, her instruments and the faint blip of her target. She waited until it broke the edge of the clouds before making her move. A hard roll to match its exit vector, swinging into firing position. Locked tone screamed in her helmet. "Target acquired." The commander's voice was a low growl. "Finish." It didn't reply. She just fired. The missile tore free, slicing through the air, and slammed into the drone's right wing. The explosion bloomed bright in the sky, fragments scattering like shrapnel fireworks. Smoke poured from the drone as it tumbled, its flight suddenly jerky, uncontrolled. But it didn't fall. Her eyes widened. "You've got to be kidding me." The AI compensated, leveling out on its damaged wing. Slower now, meaner, in the tower. The radar tech's voice was tight. "It's still airborne." The commander's hands clenched into fists. "Then she have to take it apart piece by piece." The older officer's eyes glinted. "That's her specialty." Emily's breathing steadied. The damage gave her an edge now. Not much, but enough to push harder. She rolled in behind it, Vulcan cannon spitting short bursts, aiming for sensors and stabilizers. Each impact rattled the drone's path a little more, but the AI fought like a cornered animal, rolling violently, trying to drag her into its kill zone. Falcon's voice came again, low, steady. "When the fight goes ugly, make sure you're the one writing the ending." She rolled out of its trap and back onto its tail. "Ghost Hawk the tower," she said, her voice a calm blade. "This ends now," and she meant it. How much damage could a machine take before it finally stopped fighting? Emily's HUD still showed the drone dead ahead, its damaged wing trailing smoke, but its path was anything but desperate. It wasn't limping away. It was adapting again, compensating for every handicap she'd dealt it. Her breathing stayed slow, but she could feel her heartbeat in her fingertips, in the stick, in the metal vibrating under her boots. The Raptor was solid for now, but she knew what sustained combat like this could do to even the best airframe. Both of them were burning through fuel and options. "Ghost Hawk, you've got it cornered," the commander said over comms. "Press your advantage." She kept her voice even. "Press too hard and I fly into its trap. I'm not here to win fast. I'm here to win right." Her hand made a micro-adjustment on the stick, keeping her just inside the drone's turning radius without overcommitting. In a fight like this, patience was a weapon. In the tower, the recruits stood silent. None of them were fidgeting anymore. No whispers, no half-nervous jokes, just eyes. Locked on the screen were two icons twisted together like snakes. One recruit leaned toward the older officer. "It's like she's hurting it." "That's exactly what she's doing," the man replied quietly. "She's shaping the fight, keeping it where she wants it. Most pilots just chase. Ghost Hawk makes the sky hers." The drone suddenly broke hard left. Emily anticipated it, rolling smoothly to follow. But the instant she committed, the AI flipped the script. It yanked into a sharp climb, its damaged wings straining, and dumped a burst of small-caliber fire down toward her. The rounds rattled against the Raptor's fuselage with metallic thuds. Warning lights blinked across her console. Minor hull damage. Her onboard AI intoned. She ignored it, pushing. Up through the burst, she followed the drone into the climb. The G's were worse here, the thin air stealing her breath. Her chest compressing like a vice, she forced herself to keep breathing in short, measured bursts. At the top of the climb, the drone rolled and dived. Emily followed without hesitation. Falcon's voice came to her. Not a memory of lost this time, but a memory of pure focus. If they keep leading you up and down like that, they're trying to bleed your energy. Don't give it to them. Find a new axis. She smiled faintly. "All right, Falcon, let's change the game." Halfway through the dive, she cut across the drone's path, forcing a crossing angle. The AI didn't like it. It had to shift its turn radius, bleeding just enough speed for her to slip into a better firing line. Locktone screamed in her helmet. She fired her Vulcan. The round stitched across the drone's fuselage, tearing away panels in a spray of debris. Sparks trailed from its right side. Its movements turned jerkier, less precise. In the tower, the radar tech sat forward. "She's hitting something vital. Its maneuvering's not as clean." The commander's voice sharpened. "Tell her to keep pressure." The older officer cut him off. "No. She knows when to close and when to let it breathe. Don't crowd her." Emily didn't press for the kill just yet. She kept close, but not too close, letting the AI think it still had space to maneuver. And sure enough, after 20 seconds, it tried to regain the advantage, rolling into a hard right brake. This time, she was ready. She rolled with it, staying in position, but then did something the AI hadn't seen before. She chopped throttle to idle for just 2 seconds, letting gravity pull her under its turn arc. From there, she punched the throttle forward again, slingshotting back up into position behind it. Lock tone again. She fired another sidewinder. The missile tore through the air and hit. The explosion ripped through the drone's rear stabilizers. Chunks of metal and electronics tumbled into the sea far below. For the first time, the drone visibly wobbled. Its trajectory faltered, and its climb rate dropped. In the tower, one recruit whispered, "That's it. She's got it now." The older officer shook his head. "Not yet. Machines don't feel fear. They don't break until there's nothing left for them to fly with." Emily kept on it, closing the distance. But then the drone did something she didn't expect. It stopped running. Instead, it turned into her, accelerating directly on an intercept course. Her HUD flared with lock warnings, not just one, but multiple systems arming at once. Her stomach tightened. "You want to play chicken, fine." They closed at impossible speed, the ocean and sky blurring into a tunnel. At the last possible second, she rolled hard left, barely missing a collision, her wingtips skimming past its fuselage. The drone sensors tracked her instantly, spitting another burst of rounds. 2 of them hit. Her cockpit shook violently. Warning alarms shrieked in her ears. "Left engine hit." "Her on board," I said. "Hydraulic pressure dropping." In the tower, the radar tech's voice cracked. "She's been hit." The commander's knuckles whitened. "Tell her to disengage," and the older officer snapped. "If you order her to break off now, we lose the fight." Emily ignored the alarms. She adjusted trim manually, compensating for the engines. Performance loss. The Raptor's frame groaned in protest, but it still flew. Falcon's voice again. When you're damaged, they think you're desperate. Let them think it. Copy that, she murmured. She drifted just enough to make the AI believe she was struggling for control. The drone pressed in aggressively, confident it had the upper hand. Her breathing slowed. Her eyes stayed locked on. It's vector. Then she kicked the Raptor into a sudden high G spiral climb, knowing the AI would mirror her. Halfway through, she reversed the spiral and dove, a maneuver so violent it slammed her forward against the harness. Her vision pulsed black at the edges, but when it cleared, she was on its 6 again. Lock tone. This time she didn't hesitate. She fired her Vulcan in a sustained burst, cutting into the drone's exposed wing root. The metal tore apart like foil, smoke and fire pouring out. The drone's movements grew erratic. Its eye compensating harder now, burning through whatever algorithms it had left to stay airborne. In the tower, the older officer's voice dropped low. Now she's got it. The commander's gaze stayed fixed on the radar. She'd better, because she's running out of sky. Emily's fuel gauge was sinking. She knew she had minutes left at this tempo before she'd have to make a decision. Finish it or break off. There was no decision to make. She throttled forward, closing in for one final push. The drone tried to climb again, but the damage made it sluggish. She rolled into position above it, lining up the perfect shot. Falcon's voice was calm in her. Head now. Not urgent, not commanding. It's yours, Ghost. Take it home. Her finger curled around the trigger, and the fight's end was about to begin. What was left to fear when you'd already decided you weren't walking away? Emily's HUD kept the drone dead center, its damaged silhouette wobbling in the crosshairs. Smoke still trailed from its stabilizers, and its right wing was shredded from her last Vulcan burst. And yet, it wasn't running. The eye wasn't retreating, it was recalculating. She could almost feel it thinking. Lines of code rewriting themselves in microseconds, adapting to every angle she'd thrown at it so far. Her own Raptor was bleeding too. Hydraulic pressure was low. Her left engine's performance lagged with every throttle push, and the damage warning lights on her console glared like a row of accusing eyes. The airframe had taken punishment. So had she. Fuel was dipping into the red. Every second she spent up here was one less she'd have to make it back to base. No talk. Status. The commander's voice came through. Tight as a wire, she kept her voice calm. Target damaged. Still operational. I'm moving in for final kill. You've taken hits. Copy. She cut him off. I'm still flying. There was a pause on the line. Then, softer. Don't take unnecessary risks. She didn't answer. Out here, there was no such thing as an unnecessary risk. The drone rolled sharply into a climbing turn, trying to force her into a vertical chase. She went with it, knowing the thin air would make both of them bleed energy fast. The G's dug into her chest like an iron hand, her lungs working hard just to pull in air. Halfway through the climb, the drone did something new. Her HUD flared red, incoming missile lock. From above, her mind snapped to full alert. She glanced up through the canopy and saw a flash. The drone had fired upward, letting the missile arc high before gravity brought it screaming back down at her from the blind angle. Falcon's voice ghosted in her ear. They can't hit what they can't predict. She yanked the Raptor into a twisting roll, dumping flares. And kicking into a sudden dive, the missile tracked, overshot, and detonated harmlessly in the cloud layer below. Her breathing was ragged now, but her hand stayed steady. In the control tower, the recruits murmured nervously. It's throwing shots she hasn't seen before, one said. The older officer didn't take his eyes off the radar, and she's throwing counters it hasn't seen before. That's the whole fight. Emily knew she couldn't drag this out any longer. Both she and the drone were running on borrowed time. The city was still far behind, but every loop, every dive, Every climb was bringing them closer again. She needed to end it now. She throttled up, ignoring the strain it put on her damaged engine. The Raptor surged forward, her helmet HUD filling with the drone's jittery movements as it tried to keep distance. It dipped low, skimming the ocean, spray bursting up in its wake. Emily followed, matching its altitude so close the water blurred. Under her, the smell of salt and jet fuel mixed in the cockpit. Every nerve in her body was locked on the hunt. The drone fired again, smaller rapid-fire missiles, almost like shotgun blasts in the sky. She rolled and juked between them, countermeasures flaring in hot bursts. 2 detonations rattled her jet, one close enough to leave scorch marks on the right wing. Her teeth clenched. Not this time. She cut low, almost touching the waves, then yanked the stick back into a climbing loop. The drone mirrored her, just as she wanted, at the loop's peak. She let gravity take her into a controlled drop, rolling inverted to put herself behind it. The locked tone wailed in her ears. Her finger rested on the trigger. "Target acquired," she said. "Take it, Ghost Hawk." The commander ordered. She fired. The Sidewinder streaked out, closing the distance like a lightning bolt. This time, the drone couldn't evade completely. The missile slammed into its left side, tearing away more of its structure in an eruption of fire and debris. But even now, it wasn't dead. Its eye compensated, keeping the frame level despite the damage. Its speed dropped, but its guns stayed hot, spraying bursts toward her in a last-ditch bid to even the score. One burst hit home. The cockpit jolted violently, alarms screaming. Her left engine sputtered, then caught again, weaker this time. Hydraulic pressure dipped dangerously low. She adjusted trim by hand, forcing the jet to hold steady. "Ghost Hawk, you're hit," the commander barked. "Disengage and—" "No," she said, her tone like steel. "It's still flying. That means I'm not done." She pushed forward, closing the gap until she could see the jagged edges of its damaged frame. The drone swerved erratically now, its eye struggling to stay one move ahead. She was done chasing. Falcon's voice came to her one last time. "Don't just kill it. Make sure it never comes back." Emily shoved the throttle to max. The Raptor roared forward, her eyes locked on the drone's vulnerable rear. She armed her Vulcan for a sustained burst, holding down the trigger until the barrel spun hot. The rounds tore into the drone's core housing. Sparks burst, smoke billowed, and the AI's precision faltered with each hit. Her HUD flared with warning signals from the target. Structural collapse imminent. "Ghost Hawk to tower," she said, voice low and final. "Target neutralizing." In the tower, the commander leaned forward, almost holding his breath. "Do it." Emily fired one last missile. The Sidewinder screamed through the air and slammed into the drone's central thruster. The explosion was massive, a rolling fireball that scattered burning fragments across the open ocean. What was left of the drone tumbled into the waves below, vanishing in a hiss of steam. Her HUD showed a blank sky. She let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Tower, target destroyed," she said, but her relief was short-lived. The Raptor's frame shuddered again, warning lights flaring red. Her jet was failing. In the control tower, the radar tech spoke quickly. "Ghost Hawk, your engine temperature's spiking. Hydraulics are almost gone. You need to eject." The commander echoed it. "Eject now." "That's an order." "Negative," she said, eyes already scanning the horizon for the distant glint of the runway. "I can bring her home." The older officer smiled faintly, shaking his head. "She's not built to leave it behind in the water." She leveled the Raptor and set course for base. Smoke trailed behind her like a dark banner. Every vibration through the frame told her she didn't have much time. The fight was over, but the hardest part was still ahead. How far could a wounded bird fly before the sky claimed it? The Raptor's left engine was running hot enough to cook a meal on. Hydraulic pressure sat just above critical. Every time Emily adjusted the stick, the controls pushed back like they wanted to lock up for good. The adrenaline from the fight hadn't faded, but now it was changing shape, coiling into something heavier. The drone was gone, the mission done. But if she mishandled the next 10 minutes, she'd be nothing more than a flare in the ocean. Ghost Hawk, confirm status. The commander's voice came through. Tight and low, she scanned her instruments. Left engine compromised. Hydraulics unstable. Fuel low. Still airworthy. For now. For now isn't good enough, he said. We can have a rescue bird. Negative. She cut in. I'm not bailing. I can land her. A pause then. Quietly. You've got maybe one shot at the strip. Don't waste it. The ocean stretched out endless beneath her. A sheet of shifting silver. She kept the throttle balanced. Too much, and the damaged engine might flame out. Too little, and she'd lose precious altitude. The cockpit smelled faintly of hot metal and burnt wiring. Every vibration felt amplified. Every flicker on the instruments like a whisper of failure. Falcon's voice came to her, not as a command, but as a memory. Don't fight the jet when it's hurt. Guide it. Give it room to breathe. She loosened her grip slightly on the stick, letting the Raptor settle into a smoother glide. In the control tower, the radar blip of her aircraft moved in slow arcs toward home. The recruits were tense, eyes darting between screens and the distant stretch of sky. One whispered, "If she loses that engine, does she rides it down." The older officer interrupted flatly, "And hopes she's got the altitude to glide it in." The commander's jaw flexed. "Get crash crews standing by. I want fire suppression on both ends of the runway and medics ready." Emily adjusted her heading a few degrees toward the coast. The sun glared off the water, forcing her to squint behind her visor. Her fuel gauge dipped lower. Minutes left at best. "Tower, I'll be on final in under 6, she said. "Copy. Winds are light from the west. You're cleared straight." "In." "Straight in it is." Her voice was calm. But deep in her chest, something pounded. The same rhythm it had in combat, only slower, heavier. The rhythm of knowing the real fight wasn't against an enemy anymore, but against the machine she trusted with her life. The coastline appeared as a thin line in the haze. For a second, she let herself focus on that, a promise that there was still ground under all this sky. But then the Raptor's left engine coughed, once, twice. She eased back on the throttle, coaxing it instead of forcing. The vibration lessened, but she could feel the loss of thrust. In the tower, the radar tech looked up sharply. "She's dropping airspeed. She's nursing the engine," the older officer said, voice steady. "Better to lose speed than lose power completely." Emily toggled the emergency checklist on her HUD, scanning for systems she could shut down to lighten the load. Non-essential avionics went dark. Exterior lights gone. Environmental controls gone. Every watt she saved meant one more second of flight. The Raptor responded, just a hair more willingly, 5 miles out. She could see the faint glint of the runway, heat haze rippling above it. She keyed the mic. "Tower, visual on strip. Coming in with left engine at 30%. Hydraulics are..." Sudden jolt shook the cockpit. Warning tones screamed. "Hydraulics critical," the AI reported. Flight control response may degrade. In the tower, the commander's voice went hard. "Ghost Hawk, you lose those controls and you're..." "I'm not losing them," she said, more to herself than him. Her hand stayed light but firm, guiding the jet's nose down into the approach vector. Every movement felt heavier now, like the Raptor was pushing back. Crash crews lined both sides of the strip, red trucks glinting in the sun. Medics waited at the midpoint. One crew chief muttered to his partner, "You think she'll put it down in one piece?" The partner's eyes stayed on the sky. She didn't come back to crash. 3 miles. Emily ran through her approach in her head. No fancy maneuvers, no fighting crosswinds, just a clean line and a prayer that the gear locked down. "Ghost Hawk, you're cleared to land. Winds are steady." All crews in position, the tower said. Copy. Gear coming down. She hit the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the gear indicator lit green. All three locked. Her shoulders eased a fraction. 2 miles. The left engine shuddered again, its tone dropping a note. She trimmed for the loss. Keeping her descent rate steady, 1 mile, the runway filled her. View now. Black asphalt cutting through green. She lowered flaps, the hydraulic strain obvious from the sluggish response. Half a mile, she lined up dead center, throttle low, eyes locked on the threshold. In the tower, no one spoke, even the radios. Stayed quiet, except for the faint hiss of static. The wheels touched asphalt in a puff of smoke. She eased the nose down, her hands steady despite the bucking frame. The Raptor's brakes grabbed unevenly. A lurch to the left, corrected instantly. Her heart kicked hard. But she held the line. The jet slowed, the roar of the engines fading to a growl. She taxied, clear of the strip, shutting down systems one by one until the cockpit went still. In the tower, the commander finally exhaled. She's down. The recruits broke into quiet cheers. But the older officer just nodded once. She brought it back. That's what matters. Emily popped the canopy, the rush of coastal air flooding in. The crash crew was already there, hands reaching to help her down. She waved them off gently and stepped to the tarmac herself, boots hitting solid ground. The Raptor sat behind her, scarred and smoking, but upright. She looked back at it once, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Told you we'd make it. Why was the hangar so loud when no one was speaking? Emily walked across the tarmac in the long shadow of the Raptor. The crash crews had pulled back. The medics lingered just far enough away to be ready without crowding her. Technicians swarmed. The aircraft, hands running over scorched panels, checking the warped edge of the left wing. Every hiss of a coolant hose, every clang of a dropped wrench seemed amplified in the heavy air. The fight was over, but no one was relaxing yet. The commander met her halfway. His eyes moved over her like he was counting limbs, checking for damage that might not show under the flight suit. You all right? He asked. Emily nodded. I'm fine. He gave a small, almost disbelieving shake of his head. You shouldn't be. That bird's got more holes in it than my grandmother's colander. Still flies, she said. He stared at her for a beat. Then his voice softened. Not many people could have done what you just did. Emily didn't answer. Compliments sat on her like wet clothing, heavy, uncomfortable. Inside the tower, the recruits watched her from the window, murmuring in low voices. Did you see how calm she was? Even when the alarms were. Yeah, but did you see that spiral reverse dive? I didn't think anyone could. The older officer cut them off with a look. Remember this. Skill is only half of it. The other half is knowing when not to. Panic. She's got both. In the debrief room, the air smelled faintly of coffee and paperwork. Emily sat at the table with the commander, the older officer, and 2 intelligence analysts. A screen played silent footage of the fight from tower mounted. Cameras, streaks of silver against blue sky, blossoms of fire over the ocean. The older officer leaned forward. Walk us through your last missile shot. Emily did. Calm, step by step, as though describing a training exercise instead of a duel with a machine designed to outthink her. She spoke of altitude choices, throttle discipline, using the drone's learning curve against it. The analyst typed notes at high speed, pausing only to glance at the video. When she finished, the commander sat back. So, you knew you were damaged, low on fuel, and still committed to pressing the attack. Yes. Why? Emily didn't look at him. She looked at the image of the drone's wreckage smoking on the ocean. Because it was coming back for the city. You said yourself, it learns. If it got away, next time it wouldn't make the same mistakes. The older officer nodded slowly. You didn't just kill it. You kept it from ever adapting past you. The meeting ended without ceremony. No applause, no speeches. Just a quiet acknowledgement and the scraping of chairs on the tile. Outside, the evening light had softened to gold. The hangar doors were open now, the Raptor inside under floodlights. Mechanics moved around it with the reverence of people handling something irreplaceable. Emily walked up to the nose, resting a gloved hand against the warm metal. "You and me," she murmured. "Not bad for a day we weren't supposed to fly." The smell of scorched paint and salt air clung to the fuselage. She could feel the rough edges where shrapnel had chewed the skin. Falcon's voice came again in memory, softer this time, almost approving. "It's not about how she looks when she lands. It's about the fact she landed. The younger pilots found her there." Few minutes later, still standing with the jet, one of them, barely out of flight school, said, "Ma'am, you really were an ace before today, weren't you?" Emily turned to look at him, one eyebrow raised. "Why do you say that?" "Because nobody flies like that unless they've done it before." She didn't answer. Later, in the quiet of her quarters, she sat on the edge of her bed, flight suit half unzipped, the faint ache of G-forces still in her muscles. On the table beside her was the small, weathered photograph she kept. Falcon, grinning in a flight helmet, sunlight bouncing off the visor. She turned it over, tracing the worn edges with her thumb. "I did it, old man," she whispered. "Even with everything stacked against me. You'd have said I was stubborn, and you'd have been right." Down in the hangar, the mechanics worked late. They pulled damaged panels, cataloged each system head, and shook their heads at the way the left engine had somehow kept running despite the abuse. One of them paused to look at the pilots. "Name under the canopy: Emily Ghost Hawk, Riley." "She flew her back on this?" he muttered. His partner grinned. "Yeah, that's why the name's painted on the side." The next morning, Emily stood at the edge of the runway as the sun came up. The Raptor was still grounded, mechanics still working, but the air was clean. The sky wide open. A few of the recruits passed by, nodding to her with something between respect and awe. She nodded back, nothing more. The commander found her there. "You know," he said, "we've got a formal commendation process for this kind of thing." "Not interested," she replied. He studied her for a long moment. "Then what are you interested in?" She glanced at the horizon, then at the Raptor. "Making sure I'm ready when the next one comes," he nodded. "Fair enough." When the base finally settled into its normal rhythm again, the fight became a story, passed in the mess hall, in barracks corridors, in the hangar late at night. The details shifted with each telling. But one thing stayed the same. She'd gone up alone, against something faster, smarter, and newer. And she'd come back. Emily never argued with the stories. She never corrected them, never added her own version. Because some truths didn't need explaining. Sometimes, dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.